Welcome to Skilled Nation, where hard work meets real opportunity. From welding and electrical to HVAC and the trades that keep this country running, this is where skills turn into careers. Skilled Nation is sponsored by Tulsa Welding School. It's a way of life, a badge of honor.
At 180 miles per hour, every detail matters. But what most fans never see is the skilled work behind all that speed. The wiring, the fabrication, the welding, the HVAC that keeps these machines screaming on the track. Today on Skilled Nation, we are out and about. We are at Phoenix Raceway with Dion Rocco Williams. Now, he was a former pit crew member for Jeff Gordon. Now, he does a lot of social media. He's an analyst. He knows everything about the sport, and he's going to help us explore the people who are keeping these machines going fast, real fast. How fast are we talking, Rocco?
Man, we're talking, first of all, let's change that verbiage and let's call that human performance.
Human performance.
We're talking human performance. And when you're doing a pit stop, I mean, every tenth of a second matters. And when every tenth of a second matters, you have to be very focused, skilled, and intentional. So pit crew guys are very skilled in the fact that, you are very intentional and you're the only ones in the world doing a specific function. You can't do NASCAR anywhere else but where we are currently. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. That's what makes these places magical, isn't it? When you walk in, you just feel the electricity.
Absolutely.
The crowds, the people, the kids with the face paint. I mean, You look around here, this feels like home to you, right?
It does. And what's best about it is that I didn't grow up a race fan. So,
really?
No idea.
How'd you find yourself on the crew?
Avoiding real work. I was avoiding real work. I was an athlete. I played football at Wake Forest University. Okay. I was from Georgia. So, I was familiar with NASCAR only in that I heard it. It was around, but it really wasn't marketed to me. My family didn't watch it, so I didn't know about it. But like myself and a lot of other athletes in the world, football it's our goal to reach the top, to make it to the NFL. And when that doesn't happen, a lot of athletes like myself are stuck in limbo on what we're going to do next. And luckily with NASCAR, right at the time, we're experimenting with bringing human performance in and elevating the pit stop experience by having athletes focus on that very intentionally. Because before, it was the mechanics who worked on the cars and they had to pit. Long days, long hours. Jeff Gordon and the Rainbow Warriors were the first to have a dedicated pit crew. They weren't athletes, but they were dedicated to just pit stops.
Yeah.
And that evolved to bringing in athletes who had no mechanical experience like myself, but learned. This is 21 years. I've never missed a NASCAR race. It's a career that developed in working in the shop full time, breaking cars down, and not knowing the sport at first, but then working full time at Hendrick Motorsports. You're forced to learn because you're around the best mechanics in the world. And then when you are around them and you're watching what they're doing, you realize, oh, this isn't that hard. As long as you're organized, and passionate about what you're doing. Because when it comes to NASCAR, accountability is very high.
Yeah.
It is. Those checklists are very high, and you could be the best driver in the world, but if your team isn't prepared and your truck driver isn't there, or logistically you don't get, everything has to fall into place, and that starts well before you arrive to the track, in the fab shops, in the truck bays, in the washrooms. These teams are meticulously organized to a point where they're not all the same, and that's what makes these race teams different. That's what makes car chiefs different, mechanics different, interior specialists different, welders. Put it this way. You mentioned when we were talking earlier about the welders.
Yeah.
When we go to a super speedway, there are Rockstars. Why? Because they are able to bend metal and find a way to make a car look the same, but it's not. Little nuances with just hand painting paint schemes as opposed to using wraps because of the aerodynamics of shaving down bolts, just to keep that surface as smooth as possible, finding speed wherever you can. Once I fell in love with this sport when I realized how meticulous it was and how detailed it was, and it wasn't just turning left and right. There's a lot of moving parts, and you have to be specialized in more than one area to really do well in this sport. And That's where we are today. 21 years later, I feel like this is America's best kept secret to athletes like myself and sticking ballers who really don't pay motorsports any attention. Then they come here and they're like, whoa, what just happened? You know what I'm saying? And then they're blown away and they start looking at other opportunities or how to get involved.
Well, I love this. Rocco, you're talking about athleticism, right? Bringing athleticism into the pit. And I think when I see a pit stop happening in less than, 12 seconds? Something like that, right around there?
Less than 10 seconds now.
Less than 10 seconds.
Yes.
And I'm thinking somebody has to catch that, pull that off, that heavy tire.
Yes.
There's some strength.
Yes.
There's some precision,
Yes.
right, in getting it on quickly, getting those.
Can I explain that?
Yeah,
I
please.
love that you're talking about that because you're held to a certain standard. As a tire carrier like I was, you have to, in order to perform a 9-second pit stop, you have to have a 3.2-second runaround. You have to put the tire on in 1 second or less. The tire changer has to hit that lug and has it off in 1.3 seconds or less. You put the tire on, you secure the nut, you run around 3.2 seconds, you repeat that on the left side. Everything has to align to get that 9 second. Now, mind you, we are humans doing that. You'll get 9 seconds every time when everything is perfect. But the driver, he has to come in perfect. If he doesn't and he slides too long, even 2 inches, if there's a car in front of him and he has to go around because he didn't qualify well, we're going to lose about 0.4 of a second just getting to the car compared to everything else. Everything is accounted for. Your tire catchers, like you said. I have a rule named after me. I called it the Rocko rule because, I've pitted a long time, right? So back when I was pitting for Jeff Gordon, he was leading the race. I'll give you an example of what happened. I roll my tire to the tire catcher. He does not catch it. We get penalized. Crew chief's looking at me, Rocco, what happened? Look, he didn't catch the tire. So next stop goes around. Jeff drives all the way around after being penalized. It happens again. They're looking at me.
Oh, my gosh.
So the specialist in me takes my responsibility in myself. I control my own destiny. Instead of rolling that tire to him, when it comes off on the right side of the car, I pick it up and bounce it over the wall from the right side of the car. Now, what that does is you don't have to catch it anymore, and it's over, right?
Yeah.
But it also allows me to get to my tire faster because I'm not babying it to the wall. I did that for about 6 races or so until it got caught on and people started seeing it on TV because nobody else could throw their tires like I could, right? Next thing you know, the rule changes. All tires and equipment must come back in a controlled manner. The Rocko rule was born.
The Rocko rule was born.
But that's how you have to think. You have to find ways to mitigate or to cancel mistakes because, they're not tolerated in this sport. You don't get 4 downs in football. This is a race and you have stage breaks now. It wasn't always the case then. So every time you did a pit stop, your mistake cost the team thousands of dollars. Yeah. You didn't have the bolts tight and the wheel comes off. You're costing the team money. You didn't have the electrical wiring right on your cool suit, on your driver's cool suit. Now he's baking in the car because you didn't secure that right. It's the little attention to details that not only sets the drivers apart, it sets the mechanics, the crew chiefs, and the pit crew members apart because the ones that embrace that and hold themselves accountable, those are the ones that move up the ladder from to the top tier teams and are in position to win every single week. And you don't start out that way. You have to earn that respect, and you start out in the truck series and move your way up. But you just rest assured that any mechanic and crew chief who is on one of these Hendrick or these top 5 teams, they earned that position to be there, and they should be considered some of the best in the world at what they do.
Rocco Williams, he was pitting with Jeff Gordon. He has a rule named after him, a NASCAR rule named after him. How many people can say that? He's also all over the social media. We'll tell you how to find him, and an analyst of the sport. When you analyze the sport, are you looking at the pit crews? Is that really what you have your eye on? And how much does the pit crew contribute to the win versus what we see the driver on the track? I
love that you asked that question because I feel like, the pit crew is an underrated a tool that you have. You can compare it to special teams. You technically can't win the race with them, but they can prevent you from winning.
Yes.
For here's the fact of the matter. Everyone has to change their tires at a certain point. You just have to. There's no avoiding it. So when that comes to fruition, let's say my pit crew does 9-second pit stops all the time, all right, period. And then the leader of the race is a 10-second pit stop guy. His crew can only do 10-second pit stop. He has a 200-foot lead in front of me.
Okay.
All right, he's ahead of me 200 feet. We do a green flag stop because it's inevitable. You have to. You're wearing our tires out. We do a 9-second pit stop. He does a 10-3. When we go back out on pit road, now we're in front of him. because of that.
Right.
And now that we're in front of him, dirty air affects that car like it was affecting us. He can't pass us anymore. We pit again, we get further ahead of him. That's how the pit crew helps the team win, by not messing up.
Right.
By letting the driver, by putting the driver out in the same position he came in. We're not trying to gain spots on pit road. You're not trying to beat anybody. You're just trying to do your job and wait for everybody else to mess up, because they're the ones who are going to lose the positions.
So you talk about this, and in the skilled trades, we talk about all the time. People might be working for a shop, right? And,
Yep.
if they don't come out to a job with everything they need, right, they've cost their shop money.
Not only that, the optics of this is the Cup Series, right? That's stuff that happens in the Truck Series and the ARCA Series, not coming to the track prepared. The biggest example of that is on Sundays, these teams are tuned, and, and these cars are tuned to the point when they roll off the hauler, they're pretty close to where they're going to be when it's time to race, because of the preparation back at the shop. Now, there are certain teams that when they come here, they didn't have all that done. They were behind. Maybe they had less support in the shop, or maybe they wrecked their car, and then maybe they only had 2 cars and they don't have all these cars and they're behind, so they have to do it at the racetrack. When you're doing that at the racetrack, the teams that had it done at the shop, they're focused on other things, strategy, fuel mileage, and how to get that.
So once again, you're behind before the gun goes off.
And you can't catch up. So it comes down to the organizer, your crew chief, your general manager, your shop foreman, the ones that can highlight and spotlight those talents that can get stuff done at the track. Yeah. And then you have to highlight that talent that does well, at the track and away from the track, because that's 2 different personalities. But if you can mesh that well and get a way to get both of those teams to work as one, those are the teams that are successful every week, and they don't have a lot of turnover, and they utilize their resources very well. There used to be a point where you could bring anybody you wanted to the racetrack. Now with NASCAR, they've limited the roster sizes, so you have to be very specific with who you bring.
So you have to have skills. You have to have specialized skills.
Those are earned.
Yeah.
Who you bring to the track is somebody who earned that at the racetrack through their skills, showcasing that they're dependable. Their parts look the way they need to be. The welds look the way they need to be. They're on time. They have all their measurements in the right spot. Those are the ones you bring to the track.
I'm going to throw out, Rocco, some skilled trades, the kinds of training that we talk about a lot on Skilled Nation. And you tell me, is there a place for it in a pit crew?
I like this.
Okay. We've mentioned welding, so I'm
Yes.
going to skip welding. Talk about fabrication.
Absolutely. When you're talking about fabrication, and when you're walking in the garage, and you're looking at the hospitality setup, you're seeing the hero card stands, you're seeing the stanchions, you're seeing the way the different pit boxes look, okay? One thing about NASCAR, it's a monkey see, monkey do. And when you see something, you want to outdo everybody else. You get what I'm saying? So your fabricator was your rock star. I've seen fabricators at Hendrick Motorsports. I would just be amazed how they could take one piece of metal and they could shape it into the number 5, put holes in it. They can make it look unique. They can make it into the Kellogg's, Tony the Tiger, and they could really add personality to your race team. They're very coveted, your fabricators are. That is, it's not as used as much with this new car that we went, where we're not using sheet metal. Our cars are different now, where we don't have to have a lot of metal parts, and that was by design to create parity in this sport.
Gotcha.
Because your best fabricators were all there's nothing you could do.
Yeah.
All the big teams had them, and you couldn't compete with them.
And you couldn't compete with them because what they're able to do with aerodynamics.
With the metal and the shaping of it, it was just, yes, your fabricators were the rock stars, your fabricators and your metal shapers, especially inside of a race shop. Not too much at the track. That's more of a race shop thing for your guys who don't travel as much.
Gotcha.
And crash repair, where you might need quick fixes on your weld at super speedways, because you're allowed to fix your cars when you wreck, and when you're running from points. If you have a weld...
Could you have a welder in the...
Yes, all the teams have the welders.
On site?
On site. Back when I was pitting, and when we had the older version of the car, when we would wreck, we would fix our cars. And we would practice how to do crash repair. So you would have all your skilled welders and your body men at the track with you. Because that would be the difference in winning a championship or making the playoffs. When you wreck, and you wreck with 3 or 4 cars, we fixed ours and got it back out there and ran 3 more laps. Y'all didn't. And now we gained 2 or 3 more points over you. That's where it comes, and that's how meticulous this is, and these points are so valuable, and you have to start collecting them right at the start.
So direct transfer of skills from welding, fabricating. What about electrical?
Electrical, oh my gosh, the gauges in the car, all right? Anything, the gauges, the battery, anything electrical in the car, that is your We call that was your retirement position. Because you started in the shop as a tear down.
Okay.
All right. That means when the car comes back, you're stripping the car, you're checking the parts, you're washing it. That's tear down. That's what you do. From there, you move to rear suspension and fuel cell. Fuel cell is next. You take the fuel cells out, you take the tailpipes off, you inspect those, you clean those. Next is rear suspension. You do that. Once you figure out how to take all the rear suspension off, you move to front suspension and then motor. Now, once you figure all that out, and you do that for a few years, you're like, man, I'm tired of being dirty. I'm tired of all that. And if you're in a small body frame, most of your electricians are small because you got to get inside that car,
you gotta get
right?
in there, right?
Me, I want to be good in electricals. I'm a big guy, right? But your electrical, you always stayed clean in the shop.
Okay.
You didn't get dirty.
Okay,
you're
so
working with the wires.
Pro tip, you can pick out the electrical guy because he's clean.
Yes. At the shop, he's clean and probably small. And he's very, very well organized. With the wires, you have to have an organized guy doing electrical because, you'll kill yourself. And long story short, there's no gauges in these. There's no fuel like, when I'm running out of gas. Everything is predicated on these gauges and math, and it's very rudimentary with how you calculate these these numbers and these matrices.
But
so
you don't want to have that like in a consumer car. You will have all those gauges. You probably want to get rid of those because it's weight.
Wait.
Just
This
get rid
is
of
a
weight.
driving cage.
Yeah.
These aren't like the cars that we drive with all of our
Where's
creature
my cup
comforts.
holder? Where's
No,
my-
there's not all of that. And I would think that, but you want less is more in this sport, but there's still ways to get a little bit of those driver comforts, creatively and not lose speed. And that's where the crew chiefs make their money,
Gotcha.
and how to get that done and not have issues or things fall apart,
So we talked about fabrication, we talk about welding, we talk about electrical. What about HVAC? When you talk about cooling systems, I'm used to, again, in a consumer car, the one I drove here today, right? I just have your basic, radiator, and it's keeping essentially my engine cool.
Yes.
I imagine you have brake systems that need cooling just because of the torque and the friction on these things. What all needs cooling in these systems?
Your brakes, your rotors, your driver, the inside of the car. And that's all done very creatively with the wind itself. These air ducts are put where it forces air into the car strategically on your rotors, on your ducts. What happens when those get damaged?
Yeah.
And you get injured and those get plugged? That's where issues are caused. You'll have a duct to your rotors, and that is mainly at the short tracks because the brakes get heated up really, really high. At night races, when you're racing, you can see the rotors glowing red.
Yeah, they're glowing, yeah.
But here's the thing that makes, all these cars are mandated, you have to have the same parts and pieces, correct?
Right.
But your Toyotas and your Chevys and your Fords look different underneath, and you have to figure out where to put those pieces differently. And as these cars drive and compress, where you put those pieces determines how well it works over time. These
Okay.
cars are being beat up for 300, 400 miles. So that's where you have to be very strategic on where you place these parts, where they're not compressing and getting damaged when you hit a car. Mm-hmm. Can it still work? You have to be creative with that, with your driver. And that's been a very large topic these past 3 races is the cooling of the driver. There's been a lot of malfunctions with these drivers' cool suits that they have. There's a lot of been technology involved with that where they have these suits physically forces cool water through you while you drive.
Oh, wow.
Because
Smart.
these
Smart.
cars get so hot.
Yeah.
So while you're driving, you have an air conditioner vest on yourself. Now, when that vest malfunctions, that water turns hot.
You have hot water
And now-
coursing all over your body.
And now it's a problem where drivers are having to decide, do I want that cool suit and to risk it malfunctioning, and then now I'm driving in the sauna, to the point
Right.
where here's what would determine that for me: how well my interior guy is, how
Right.
well is he at hooking up my personal HVAC, my personal air conditioning cooler, because that's what's going to mandate if it fails or not. Not having it in the right spot or not connecting it in a way, not going through the right sequencing prior to that race starting, and the heat builds up on it, your sweat builds up on it. Maybe another part malfunctions and it affects that. There's a lot of things that you have to take into account, and I would want the smartest engineer, the most possible. You could take an HVAC guy, show him what we're trying to do with racing and our cooling system there, and if he's smart enough, he can figure out some correlations, some synergies that would be very advantageous to a team, to the point where they don't have to worry about checklisting what he's doing.
Got it.
They would love having an HVAC guy working on their cooling stuff and anything that's cooling their car, compared to a mechanic who really didn't have any background on that, and they have to teach him that.
Right.
Maybe that what he's seen and his other experiences in HVAC, he can bring something to that race team, something to that crew chief that they're not seeing, that can add a difference where theirs don't fail as much. I think you got to be an open mind with that, and that HVAC and just anything where there's meticulous attention to detail needed, will fit very, very well in this sport and with a race team.
Rocco Williams, he analyzes the performance of pit crews every day, so he knows what's up there. And, when I think about, you're talking about there's their underlying skill transfer.
Yes.
Underlying knowledge transfer. But now how does it elevate? How does it specialize, right? And then what is the kind of pathway, the mentorship that gets you the knowledge that you need, that you can only get in the professional environment?
Here's the thing, when you want to be a professional, when you want to play football or basketball, you can go to the store and buy a football or basketball.
Yeah.
Okay?
I'm going to go buy a NASCAR. Yeah.
When you want to practice being a mechanic in NASCAR, how are you going to practice?
Right.
What makes NASCAR so unique and about the mechanics and the athletes that are in this sport is about 90% of them took a chance on themselves to get in this sport and bet on themselves. The story for the NASCAR mechanic and how you get in is you drive to North Carolina and you introduce yourself to the team and you say, hey, I want to learn, I want to be a part of this. And you start sweeping the floors, you start picking up the tires, and you start showing where you're helpful. And then you move up. And there's nobody exempt from that. Right. It goes from back when I started in 2004, it went from the pit crew, it went to the crew chiefs, and went to the to everybody in that regards, So you start off that way, you earn your respect, and then you have to go racing. You got to go to the ARCA races, Pro Cup. It's not a Pro Cup, ARCA, O'Reilly Series, Cup Series, You have to show that, okay, I don't make any mistakes in the truck series. Everybody sees that because we're at traveling circuits and we know who everyone is.
Yeah.
So once you
have eyes on each other, don't you?
You do that. You're early to the plane. You look good when the garage opens up. You're on time. Your shirt's tucked in. You're yes sir, no sir. You can always be counted on. Then next thing you know, the O'Reilly Series calls you up. Hey man, we like what you did in the truck series. Let's try this. The races are a little bit longer. They're a little bit more structured. So you do well there. You create a name for yourself. Next thing you know, you're racing with Cup guys as well. They look at you. They see that, hey, who's that young guy over there? And in my case, who's that young black guy over there? So I really stood out because during my time, there weren't a lot of guys that looked like me. I came from football. I was tatted up. I had, I was really strong, and I was really prideful in how I looked. So I stood out. Doing that, a Cup team gets your attention. He offers you a tryout. They give you a trial basis. You go to the Cup team. That's how you progress through the sport. The average career in stick and ball sports and guys like me is 3 years.
Right.
And then we have to go get another job. We can't play sports anymore. The average career in NASCAR for a guy like me is 10 to 20 years. I pitted cars professionally for 17 years before I retired, and I'm still in the sport through hospitality, content creating, broadcast analyst, and mentorship. You asked about the mentorship. I didn't have anybody tell me but my best friend, who was my mentor, who recruited me into the sport. I didn't have any other guys who done what I did before to tell me what not to do, because I was the first.
Right.
So my speed bumps, luckily they weren't big to the point where they pushed me out the sport. But they were big enough where I got slapped down a few times, and I had to get humbled and learn how to play this game as a athlete coming into motorsports.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? And then once I figured that out and they saw, hey, this guy's a hard worker. He's still showing up. He's making his team look good. I was pitting for Kyle Petty at the time, and I treated them like Hendrick Motorsport. That's why Hendrick noticed me and gave me the shot to try out for Jimmy Johnson's team. When Jimmy brought me on, he didn't bring me on as a starter. I was the backup jack man. But then Mark Martin's team saw me as a backup and saw like, hey, man, can he be our starter? Just because I was showing up every day. I was looking good. I wasn't complaining about not starting. I was just showing up, putting in the work, being available. moved up to Mark Martin, won 5 races in his first year with a 50-year-old man, finished second in the championship, learned so much there. He left, they do the team swap, Jeff Gordon comes on. I retired with Jeff. The biggest thing that I've learned in my career is be a sponge and listen to the ones that are doing the right stuff. Anytime Jeff talked, he was in all of our meetings, all our pre-race meetings, I made sure I listened. I was a sponge. I watched what he did and how he did it because Mark Martin was the same way. You just be a sponge. When I worked at Hendrick, I wasn't a mechanic. I couldn't change my oil at all. I knew nothing. They just wanted me for my athletics. By the time I left there, 3 years, I was moving front suspension off because I went to college.
Right.
I could learn how to study. I just watched what they did. I bought the tools that they did, and it was just ask the right questions.
This sounds like the kind of advice that transfers to anybody.
Anything.
Going through any kind of early career, mid-career pivots.
Yes.
Anything.
Yes.
It's be humble enough to start at the bottom.
Bet on yourself.
Be respectful, bet on yourself, seek out mentorship, and then be a sponge. I mean,
be a sponge. You have to.
I don't know.
If they're doing it right, watch what they're doing, and they're
Yeah.
setting a precedent, and they're giving you the template. Don't be someone who doesn't, want to do it your own way. Watch the guys that are doing it before you and doing it well, and take advantage of your resources and your opportunities. There's nothing like being at the racetrack and talking and introducing to people doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing now. This is myself, and I'm on around the track or in Charlotte all the time, talking about this in NASCAR. We're breaking down this stuff, and I tell these guys all the time, take advantage of the opportunity of being in Charlotte around these teams.
Yeah.
You know where they are.
Yep.
Do it the way we did, by showing up and offering help. A team is never going to turn down help. Don't ask how much I'm going to get paid.
Nope.
Don't ask, what the hours are. Don't ask, hey, what do I have to do? Just say, hey, how can I help? And then I will guarantee you doing it that way will produce more fruit than the other way.
Now, what about get back to systems
Okay.
in the car? It's such a vast piece of technology, right? What's the thing that I just enjoying the sport, enjoying the speed, don't appreciate like I should?
Okay.
What is the system, the component, the piece of craftsmanship that I might undervalue because I don't have a trained eye like yours?
Gas spillage is the most interesting
What?
thing for me.
I never would have guessed that.
Calculating gas spillage.
You're talking, so when they pit, among the things you do, you change the tires, you see a lot of the things, you always fuel up. Now you're saying they don't have a fuel gauge, so they're doing math.
They're doing math. That's a 90-pound gas can using gravity
Okay.
to 21 gallons of gas, 14 gallons of gas out. And you can dump one can with gravity in about 6 to 7 seconds, correct?
God, you've done all this. You
Yeah.
just
6 to 7 seconds. The race car, it takes 2 cans to fill your car up, all right? Because it's a 20-gallon tank. It's only a 14-gallon gas can, right? So you need 2 to fill up the tank fully.
gotcha. Okay.
So
Do you have time when you're pitting to do 2?
that's why I'm so excited about this part. This is what I wanted to tell you about. These crew chiefs have learned, and these engineers have learned. There's 2 races going on. There's the tortoise and the hare race going on. And I didn't pay attention to it because I'm all about going fast.
Right.
I'm the hare. I'm just fast. But the tortoise that game plan is sneaky, all right? No matter, every race I've been at, this for 21 years, no matter how you do it, whether you start off fast or you start off slow, by the time the last 30 laps click off, those 2 will be right there with each other.
Okay.
And here's what the thing is. When I noticed how they were doing it, they weren't driving fast anymore. They were driving fast enough to do less pit stops than everyone else. And they had an engineer who could calculate the fuel spillage better, where they could stretch out the fuel mileage longer than everybody. When you're gassing that can and you're plugging it in, sometimes you don't hit it squarely and you spill gas. Sometimes you spill a lot, sometimes you don't. Did you know that the size of the puddle determines how much you spill sometimes? And the crew chief will notice it, and the engineers will notice it from the box. And they have to calculate the spillage and put it into their equation to determine how much you can run
Before pitting.
before pitting.
So
imagine how
everything is a strategy.
And once I realized that there were engineers that just were better at math than others, that became the coolest part of the sport for me because I'm a physical guy. I pick things up, put things down. I can do that really fast. But to mentally, to beat somebody by outsmarting them, just because you know math better than anyone else and you're thinking outside the box, that is one of the coolest things I've ever been a part of as far as racing because I didn't really pay attention to that because I was just about getting the tires out fast. I wasn't thinking about how can I beat somebody without even them knowing. And that's what they're doing.
It is, as with everything else, right? It's physical.
Yes.
It's mental. It's kind of how you, mental approach, right? It's kind of maintaining tending your garden, so to speak.
Deion Sanders says it best. Look good, feel good, play good, get paid good.
I can't think of a better way to end than that. How can we find you? I know you're doing a lot on social media.
Yes.
Tell me what you got going on, how we can find you.
You can find me on Rocko Slaw, ROCKO/SLAW on Instagram, all your networks, and you can also tune in to Around the Track on all your local news outlets as well. And we'll be breaking down the NASCAR stuff there. You will soon see me on a podcast called Men on Pause. You can find me on YouTube on there.
Okay.
30 to 50-year-old.
Great name.
30
Great
to 50-year-old guys married for a long time, traveling on the road, talking about real-life events, and we're dropping dimes and knowledge like we've been doing now, you know, to all of our little mentees in the sport as well, and our future 30 and 40-year-olds.
Well, I love the fact that you've taken it upon yourself, and it's important to you to fill a mentorship role.
Yes.
Because you clearly have so much knowledge to share, and I know that for a lot of the people listening who are saying, well, gosh, how that's what I want to do.
Yep.
How do I get there? They can know that if they're learning skilled trades, there's a path.
Do you know how many times I hear that? How can I get there? And first thing I ask is like, hey, where do you live? Phoenix, Richmond, Texas. Move to North Carolina, bet on yourself, and just introduce yourself to a race team on what you want to do and how you can help. 9 times out of 10, before you go back, you'll have yourself a job. You just got to bet on yourself and believe in yourself.
All right, winner there. Rocco, thank you so much. Dropping the knowledge
Absolutely.
and helping our listeners know that there is a path for them as well. Rocco Williams, he is, he pitted with Jeff Gordon and a lot of others too.
Yep.
You heard him on the socials. He's an analyst. You can see him on your local TV station, your local NextStar. So look for him there as well. This is Skilled Nation. It's a badge of honor. All right, Rocco is in the mentorship phase of his journey, but there's a whole new crop of young bucks entering motorsports that are using their skills and precision to move the speed forward. Today on Skilled Nation, we are on location at Phoenix Raceway during the GovX 200, and we have with us from the Alpha Prime Team 44 pit crew, we have Victor Williams. Thanks for a busy race day, I'm sure.
Yes. We very busy. Garage opened today at 12.
Okay.
We've been here since 11, and garage don't close till 9:30 tonight, so we are going to be at it all day.
It's going to be a long day. Thanks for taking time to join us on Skilled Nation.
No problem.
So, first of all, tell me about what lit the spark in you to get into motorsports, and then what was your path? What was the journey that made it possible to join a NASCAR team?
Yeah, well, so, growing up, my mom tells me stories of this all the time when I was younger. When Lightning McQueen, the first Cars movie, when it came out, I was 3 years old, and I was hooked. That movie hooked me into, racing. And then, of course, growing up, I always had the races on. I was a huge Dale Jr. fan as a kid, so I'm glad to be the mechanic that I am. Growing up, I always wanted to be a race car driver. And so I was in couple racing programs growing up, raced down in Virginia International Raceway, but to race you need deep pockets, and you also need to be good, and I wasn't the best driver and I didn't have deep pockets, but I knew I wanted to be in racing some way somehow, so took the mechanic route, and here I am today. So.
And see that now that's interesting to me is because you see the speed of the cars, right? And
Right.
You see the driver kind of as the face of the team, right?
Right.
But there's a whole team behind it, and you found a pathway onto that team. This fascinates me. the race weekend, you're just here for a few days, right?
Right.
So what does your week look like? Like when do you start thinking about this race, preparing for it, packing for it?
Right.
What does it look like? And then when you arrive here, is it just an empty room that you have to trick out?
Right. Well, and it's funny, you say, when do we think about this race? It might sound silly. We think about this race way back in January.
Really?
Honestly,
Months ago.
We're always thinking about, okay, what do we need to do? For, my crew chief Frank Kerr says, he always drills in us, look ahead, think ahead, and that's what we do. We look ahead. We plan months in advance on sometimes what cars may run, just things we may do at the track, but during the week, when we finish up getting the car put together, it may be until Wednesday, because we normally travel out on Thursdays. It might be until Wednesday when I pack bags, get things ready for
And this is both like personally, but also for your job in the crew.
Yes, yes,
so
indeed.
you're putting together the selected tools you need, the backup parts you might need.
Yep.
So you have to think of every possibility.
Exactly. Yep. So you gotta have your spare axles on the truck, your rear gear on the truck. Me being the rear end mechanic, things like that. So, all your underneath things.
So I guess what I'm wondering now is, there's a lot of talk about a new generation entering NASCAR, really, and pushing the sport forward. And they have to have the right skills, the right training, right, to do that. Is your driver new? Your driver, Brandon Poole?
Brandon Poole, no, he's been in this for a long little while. Actually, it's funny enough, when I was in middle school, I remember seeing him almost win race in 2016. It was his Talladega race. So if you want to say childhood hero,
he's one of them, and you're getting to work with him now.
Exactly.
What about what would you say the average age is in the pit crew? Like on that Team 44, what do you?
Yeah, so we are a younger crew, for the most part. I know us on the mechanic side, the older. Well, of course, you have our crew chief, who he's seasoned.
Yep.
But as far as the other mechanics, we're range from the age of like 26 to 21 years old. So,
and tell me about the teamwork and camaraderie, since it does seem like a younger crew. Are you kind of, I don't know, growing up together and developing those bonds?
Yeah. Oh, yes. You have to, because we're literally every day of the week, pretty much, with each other. Like we have our families, but during the race season, we are family.
Okay.
All the crew members, we all, have to have that bond, because we travel to tracks together. We may have breakfast, dinner, lunch, whatever together. Like we're always we may even go, play golf and something like that. So, and you need that. We're always with each other. So you need that unity.
We're talking with Victor Williams. He is part of the pit crew for Alpha Prime Racing Team 44. And, when people see NASCAR, when they see these cars, they see the driver, right, face of the team.
Right.
They see the car, very identifiable, right, with the sponsorships and everything else. But then behind that is the team that you're a part of.
Yes, sir.
And you're a little more hidden from view, right, really, for the public. And what I'm curious about, because on Skilled Nation, we're always highlighting the skilled trades.
Right.
So where are the fabricators, the welders, the electricians? Like, is that a pathway onto a NASCAR team as well?
It is.
Cooling systems too.
Yeah, no, it certainly is. You all those jobs, backgrounds, they all can lead to racing, to being on a team. Kind of like me with being an automotive mechanic. That helped open the door to being here.
All right, but you got to have it intentionally as a goal.
Exactly, you
right?
got to have that intentionally as a goal, you got to be able to transition, because you might have the knowledge from just a basic, but you got to be able to have the transitional knowledge to, all right, how does things work on a race car? It might be different than your regular everyday gadgets and gadgets and cars and things like that. But this is totally different in a sense, you know.
So you see everyone on the team, and you see what they're doing. So I want to break out how some of these skills apply in your crew.
Yeah.
So, like, how much welding? Do you do any welding? And
a
you
little
do?
bit.
Okay.
I do a lot of MIG welding.
Okay. And is this, I imagine, chassis is kind of the foundational of the welding thing, or what else am I not thinking of?
Here and there. Sometimes, like this past week, matter of fact, had a exhaust that had to get welded. One of the tabs was starting to separate, and
Okay.
you know, you sometimes you got to repair what you got. Repair what you got, especially on the smaller team. You know, you got to repair what you got, and you know that brings you where you need to go.
So Victor, you're saying a smaller team. Give me a sense of the size. How many people are on Team 44, and how many people are on the Alpha team altogether?
So, including truck drivers, including the mechanics, it's honestly really about 7 of us.
Okay. Wow,
7,
that
8.
is a tight team.
Exactly.
So you're all
On
wearing
the
more hats
44.
than a bigger team would?
Oh yes.
Okay.
And thing on when you're on a smaller team, you kind of have to do a little bit of everything. You know, it's not just okay. You're the engineer, so you're in charge of setup. Well, sometimes you are also turning wrenches on smaller teams.
Right. You learn a little bit of everything,
Exactly.
right? So
And that's good.
So welding, you might have had to, like you said, you had a gap coming in.
Right.
Because I imagine the forces on every part on this
yes.
card at 180 miles, the forces are just intense.
Oh yes.
So have you ever had to just like hold something together with repair? I mean, that was one example. Are there other times where it comes in and it's just like, we just got to do this?
Yeah. Oh yes. Sometimes even, and this isn't necessarily repair, but you know, there's sometimes, and this what most teams do anyway. But you have it to, if you have to get your rear camber correct, you might have to heat a certain area on rear end housing. You know, get that right.
Just so you can like bend. You gotta
Right,
heat it
exactly.
up a little bit. Okay.
Yep. I mean, it's just a whole lot involved in that sense. Yeah.
You know what I question is cooling. Because I think when people think cooling systems, you know, they're thinking of the engine. But what about brakes?
Oh, brakes.
What
Yes.
about, are there other systems?
Yes.
What about the driver? I mean, tell me how cooling winds up being really critical to success on the track.
It is critical. You have your rear gear needs cooling on road courses. Your transmission needs cooling. Everything needs cooling. Your driver needs cooling. And that plays a huge part in just the longevity of your components on the car. Your driver as well helps them get through the race. There's times we actually just recently got a new cool suit, and on a hot day like Texas, for example, we were able to get the driver down to about 60 degrees, and that was a game changer for him. So cooling is huge.
Okay.
For sure.
And I would imagine that there's a lot of data coming from the car back to the crew.
Yes.
So that you can kind of monitor the systems. What does that change in terms of electrical, in terms of data transfer? Is the underlying skills there in terms of learning electrical?
Yeah. I mean, one thing for sure, on the pit box, we always get our driver feedback with things like that. He might say, hey, you know, we have a gauge not showing, you know, not reading like it needs to, or hey, a voltmeter is reading yada yada in the car. And so that helps us big time with kind of getting ahead of the situation.
Yeah, so you're talking about that box being a communication system back and forth from the driver to the crew?
Well, just with him talking.
Okay.
And
so they have like microphone on?
Yes,
Okay.
indeed. Yes, indeed. Yep. And that always helps us, you know, stay ahead of the situation.
Okay. So that constant communication back and forth.
Right.
But even, are you getting data beyond what he's telling you verbally?
So our race cars are old school. It's not like Cup.
Okay.
Yeah, these cars are old school, so they Not necessarily, like our electronics doesn't necessarily get shown on the monitor per se. I mean, we do give SMT data showing our drivers inputs, but other than that, our cars are old school.
Old school. You're not getting
Old
all
school,
the,
yeah.
okay.
It's still pretty much a 1960s technology on with our cars.
Hey, well,
believe
you
it or
were
not.
inspired by an early '90s, animated film, so
Right,
We'll let it
exactly,
slide.
right. Let it slide.
We're talking to Victor Williams. He is with Alpha Prime Racing, Team 44. You're on the pit crew. You do mechanical. I got to ask, things rarely go perfectly. What happens when the unexpected happens? Tell me about how you have to be adaptable.
Oh, yeah.
You have to be rooted in your skills, and you have to communicate. Talk about the teamwork when
yeah.
something goes sideways.
Yeah, well, so when something goes sideways, it is you just got to be ready. You got to expect the best, but prepare for the worst. Honestly, if you doing a race, if we were to get involved in an accident, be ready. Get your the bear bond, which is a type of tape we use in racing. Get the bear bond ready. Get the saws ready. Get the hammers ready. Like you are having to just roll with the punches and go pretty much. That's key. Honestly, that is key. Just being ready, having everything out. Even before the race may start, we may already have our saws and things ready. Or me being the rear end mechanic, I might have my axles ready just in case we were to wheel hop and break something.
You hope not to
You
use
hope
it.
not, exactly. But still prepare for the worst. Got to be ready. Got to be ready.
So, what are the hidden systems in a car that if I'm just as a fan watching it going on the track,
Right.
and nothing's going wrong, everything's working perfectly, what systemically, right, is going right? What are the systems that have to go right to get the kind of performance you need to win a race that the casual observer doesn't even know about?
Right. So there are a lot of things. A lot of things have to go right to have a good day. Pertaining, like with the car, for sure, want to make sure that your vehicle is, down on the ground in a sense, like going around the corners and things like that. You want everything to be sealed to the ground. For sure, your engine, it's the power point of the whole car, right? You want that to be up to par. Just everything really. And another thing that a lot of people tend to overlook, like fans, yes, it takes the crew, it takes the driver, it takes the car, but it also takes strategy as well. From the crew chief, it takes strategy, just looking around, okay, and hoping that a caution does or doesn't come out, which stops the field and would have you, make you decide, okay, do I have to come into pit, get some tires or not? Do I stay out? So it's just a lot of things gotta go right.
Well, what would you call it? Is there a system that has a kind of craftsmanship or importance to the overall that stands out to you, that you appreciate the most?
Yes. Honestly, I say car setup. Like, cause you could have the best driver, right? You could have the best driver, you could have the best engine, but something that I take a lot of just awe into, right, is just car setup. And that falls a lot on your engineer, a lot on your crew chief. That is your platform on your race car as it goes around the track. And if you don't have a car that's set up well, you're not going to
Define setup for me. I mean, are you talking about how it sits on the chassis? Are you talking about
You're
what's
talking-
in reach of the
so
driver?
you're talking about it's a lot of suspension. So you're talking like your geometry, your
Okay.
wheel geometry. You're talking about, okay, maybe how many rounds you would have in a spring to kick your vehicle in whichever direction it needs to go for. Just depending on what track you're at. or even your track bar, or how far over do we want our rear end to go? Just things like that. Tire pressure as well. That's part of the setup, because the tire guides are very crucial.
Yeah, that's almost where it seems really athletic.
Yes.
Because you're talking about the precision, the strength, the timing. I mean, you're really talking about athletic traits
yes.
there.
Oh, yes.
And you look like you're in fine shape yourself.
Well, thank you.
What is the athletic component to this, the human component to
Yes.
this? Because, in the skilled trades, we hear all the time, it's Phoenix in the heat.
Right.
If you're doing HVAC, you're going to be in an attic when it's 180 degrees in that attic. You're
Right.
going to be on a roof in the direct sunlight, and you have to have a certain amount of connection, and you need to take care of your instrument. You need to take care of your body to some degree. How is the athletic component in NASCAR?
Oh, it's up there. Especially on hot days, like not necessarily today, but Texas, for example, hydrate. We might not be in it now, or even when we practice and qualify, but on race day, we are in these big, heavy fire suits.
Okay.
And along with the fire suits, you're wearing your fireproof underclothes. You're wearing your face protection, and a helmet. All that in the heat. So
Oh my gosh.
it takes a lot. I mean, you could sweat out 5 pounds and not even realize it.
So hydrate.
Hydrate. Yes,
Yeah.
indeed.
The same thing. That's the same thing in the trades.
Oh yes, honestly.
And
Right.
sometimes you're crawling into really tight spaces. I imagine you get that sometimes with the mechanical as well.
Oh yes.
Where you're doing yoga or
Which it kind of benefits me being the tiny guy I am, right? I could get in tight places. My crew chief may be like, "Hey, Victor, go under there, and you can reach it. You got long arms." So,
talk about a pit stop. They happen in about how much time?
a good pit stop in our series, like 12, 13 seconds.
12 or 13 seconds.
Right.
All right. How much can you do? And also, do the trades, like the trade skills, come into play? And what's the communication like? What are you thinking about when you see that car coming into your pit area?
So, and I'll tell you a story. So this was back in 2024, my first season in this series. At the time it was called the Xfinity Series, but we had we were in Portland, Oregon, for the race, and the pit crew guys was us mechanics, which was pretty interesting. And so we had to, when the car came, I remember the first pit stop. Here comes the car. I'm like, oh snap! Here I go. Here comes the car. This is it. And you just gotta be ready. The car comes at you, and you gotta go. You jump over the wall. Make sure your hose don't get caught in the, underneath the car as it coming around, and make sure you hit all your lugs on and off, and the fuel guy, make sure you get all your fuel in the car. I mean, it is a lot. And even just me now, I haven't pitted a car since then, really. But I catch the tires, and you don't want the tires to bounce off the wall and go back out on the track. You get penalized. So it's a lot. It's a lot. It's teamwork. It's teamwork, honestly. Yep.
For sure. What about the cameras? What about the cameras, the crowd? I mean, you're doing all this not only in a high-pressure thing because you want to win.
Right.
And you don't want to get that penalty, but you're also doing it under scrutiny.
Yes.
What does that do to your mindset? How do you get in the mindset to succeed under that kind of pressure?
Right. It is
like
a lot of
what is
pressure,
what's the mental and emotional toll?
Well, so my biggest thing, I try to just ignore the noise. That's the biggest thing. Ignore the noise, because the noise it's a distraction.
Right.
Honestly. Okay. And I try to. I'm a Christian man, so I pray. I ask God, all right, what do I need to do to keep it moving? Keep my head up. Because you may have good days, you may have bad days, but regardless, you gotta keep it going straight. Stay good. Be your best, regardless on what situation you're in. So,
but when you do make a mistake, right?
Right, which happens.
You got to learn from it.
Exactly.
So what is a mistake you've made that actually made you better at what you do? because you had the right attitude about that mistake.
Right. Okay.
Because I think that for the trades, for anything, that's a lesson that we all need to do, right? Is like a mistake is wasted if you don't learn from it.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, and mistakes happen, right? I remember my first year, and this is kind of funny. We were heading to Talladega, and I couldn't quite remember if I loaded everything up that we needed, right?
Okay.
So here we go. we get to the
nagging,
track. Yeah, and here I am. We're driving to the track, and I'm like, did I have that? I don't think I did. Did I have it? And so we get to the track, and what I'm talking about, it was jack stands, right? You kind of go to need that to work on your car, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so I had left the jack stands that we needed at the shop, and I was like, no way, did I just let that happen? And I did, right? Things happen, but that moment right there showed me that you gotta double check, triple check, go out on the truck. All right, do I have this? Do I have that? Sometimes you may even have to help your guys out too.
Yeah.
Hey, do you have this? Do you have that? Because we're a team. We're here to help each other. So
for people listening that might want to get on a NASCAR crew,
right.
And right now, though, what they're learning are skilled trades. They're in an electrical program, an HVAC program, fabrication. What would you tell them about how much transfer there is of their knowledge base, right? Mm-hmm. And then how specialized will it then also need to become?
Yeah.
So kind of lay out that path. Like, I'm maybe a student listening right now in RSI or Tulsa Welding School, and I'm thinking, man, I'd love to do this. Everything Victor's talking about is resonating with me. So I guess two parts. How transferable is what they're learning to what they'd be doing in some stations on a crew? And then how specialized will it become beyond what they're learning? Yeah.
So a lot of the things that you may learn, it really does translate to racing a lot. Especially in this in the O'Reilly Auto Parts series, our cars, like I said earlier, they're old school. They're pretty much like 1960s technology. So a lot of this stuff is stuff that's been around for many years. So it's not that necessarily is real difficult. What is real difficult, I say, is probably just staying committed to it, because it takes a lot of time out of your out of your life. It may pull you from families, things like that. But as far as with just technology and things like that, it's something that you could grasp on pretty well. Now, and another thing for sure, when it comes to these the electronics with these cars, you really got to make sure that what you do is done right the first time.
Oh yeah,
they always,
there's a lot riding on it.
Exactly. Yeah, they always say you always have time to do it right the second time, like all time in the day to do it right the second time. Why not get it done right the first time? So that's the biggest thing, because you want to try to keep from any failures on the track. You don't want any mistakes, anything like that. So that's the biggest thing. The components may be similar, not similar, but components may be simple. That's my word. Simpler, but you have to be flawless and execute.
All right. So it sounds like, because that is a big in skilled trade training.
Right.
Do it right the first time.
Exactly.
Because you're costing what sometimes is a small shop, right?
Right.
You can be costing them a lot of money that they can't really absorb, right? So, that really carries over. It sounds like the biggest change might be lifestyle, a lot of road, being away from family, things like that. So if you can get around the lifestyle part of it and you're really drawn to the sport, you can actually get in with that welding, fabrication, electrical, or cooling background.
Yep.
Well, that's exciting.
Yes,
that's something to dream for.
Oh, yes, it's a dream come true. I love it, like I said, and if little 3-year-old me could see what I'm doing now, he'll be amazed. He'd be like, oh man, look at you. Look at you. So I love it.
Well, here you are. You made it. Pinch yourself. You're not dreaming.
Yes, indeed, right? Boop.
Well, I know it's race day.
Yes.
I'm so grateful that you took the time to spend with us talking about the skilled trades, how the skilled trades translate to NASCAR team, and really just about your journey. I appreciate it, Victor.
Yes, no problem. No problem. Thanks for having me.
This is Victor Williams. He's part of the Alpha Prime Racing Team 44 pit crew. This is Skilled Nation. Look, precision matters in the skilled trades. You want to do it right the first time, so you don't have to do it a second time. Hey, listen, thanks for watching Skilled Nation. Badge of honor, a way of life.